Andrew, help us try to understand the economics of just the restaurant business, even in New York City, because if you can only do 25% capacity indoors and your fixed costs, I think, are probably around 50%, how can you make it work unless you have the indoor piece and the outdoor piece, and even then?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I mean, restaurants as a whole are essentially economic pass-through businesses. They only keep, on average, independent restaurants about 7 to 6.5% of their revenues. So you have to be operating at least 95% of capacity at pre-COVID numbers to be making it work, which is the reason that America's restaurants and bars have been hit harder than any other industry during the pandemic. No industry in America has lost more revenue or jobs. In fact, food and beverage establishments are still down over 2.5 million jobs since the outset of the crisis. Conservatively, 1 in 6 restaurants are estimated to have already closed. Those are the ones who have announced it. Many have just shut their doors with a temporarily closed sign on it, waiting for a miracle. And 85% of restaurants are at risk of closing by the end of the year, which is why passage of the Heroes 2.0 bill is so important, because that includes the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and other mechanisms to help small businesses like independent restaurants.
Well, let me ask you, Andrew, if I could make you the restaurant czar and you could wave a magic wand, what is it exactly that you would do, recognizing that it is very possible that even, I don't know what your timeline is for a vaccine, but even optimistic versions of a timeline for a vaccine really mean that we could still be talking about next summer before people really feel fully comfortable just walking back in and packing a bar or packing a restaurant. So what would that frame look like for you?
You raised the most important point, and something that I've been talking about for 5 or 6 months. Not only is it about vaccine and therapeutics, but then after that, it takes a while for consumer demand and consumer safety feelings to catch up with returning to public places at all. Gatherings of large types indoors of any kind are going to take a while. I actually extend it past next summer, which is why there's a $120 billion restaurant revitalization fund embedded in Heroes 2.0. And it establishes grants to small restaurants and bars that have been devastated by COVID-19. And it basically backstops and supplies grant relief throughout 2020. Now, that basically allows a revenue recapture of roughly 12 months to most restaurants. In some cases, it might be a little more for those that have not used their first round of PPP stimulus, and many did not or were not able to because they weren't open.
Right.
So therefore, they don't have to deduct that number from the grant numbers that they've been given. There's also an expanded employee retention tax credit. And, this is sort of like complex calculus for people, but essentially what it means is it helps independent restaurants and bars keep on more employees as they work with diminished capacity limits and a decreased need for larger staffs. So what it really is it's an employee incentive program that helps solve some of our unemployment numbers. $120 billion spent in this by the Treasury Department will save $270 billion calculated over the next 12 months.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.